We came home from Christmas vacation to find our son's presents gone. Every single one. The Nintendo Switch we'd saved for. The bike with training wheels. The art supplies. The books. Everything we'd carefully wrapped and placed under the tree before we left for my husband's family reunion in Colorado. In their place was a handwritten note from my mother on her monogrammed stationery. The house was clean. Spotless, actually. The dishes were done. The mail was sorted on the counter. And under the tree, where 17 wrapped presents had been, there was nothing but a folded piece of cream-colored paper. My son saw it first. He ran to the tree the moment we walked in, still wearing his winter coat, excited to finally open his gifts. We'd told him he had to wait until we got home. He was 8 years old and he'd been so good about it, talking about Christmas morning the entire 6-hour drive back. Then he stopped. He picked up the note. He looked at the empty space under the tree. He turned to me and his face just crumbled. I took the note from his hand. My mother's handwriting was neat, controlled. We returned all of the gifts. He was rude to us during our stay and didn't deserve them. We've kept the money as compensation for our time. Do not contact us about this. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. My husband started to reach for his phone, and I put my hand on his arm. I walked into our bedroom, opened my laptop, and pulled up the security camera app. We'd installed cameras 2 years ago after a break-in on our street. 4 cameras. Living room, kitchen, front door, backyard. All with audio. All cloud-backed. I started scrolling through the footage from the week we'd been gone. What I saw made my hands stop shaking. Made my breathing even out. Made everything suddenly perfectly clear. Let me tell you how we got here. My parents have always had opinions about how I raise my son. From the moment he was born, my mother had a comment ready. The name we chose was too unusual. I was holding him too much. I wasn't sleep training correctly. I went back to work too soon. I stayed home too long. Nothing was ever right, but it was always delivered with a smile, always wrapped in concern, always just barely deniable if I tried to push back. My father would nod along, adding his own observations about discipline and structure. He'd grown up in a military household and believed children needed firm boundaries. My mother had grown up with money and believed children needed to understand respect and gratitude. Together, they created this unified front of disappointment in my parenting that had been consistent for 8 years. But I'd built something they didn't know about. While they were critiquing my choices and offering unsolicited advice, I'd been quietly building a business. It started 5 years ago as freelance graphic design work I did during nap time and after bedtime. Small projects, local clients, nothing flashy. My parents knew I did some computer work from home, but they'd never asked for details. My mother once said it was nice I had a hobby that brought in a little extra. My father said it was good I was keeping my skills current in case I ever needed to get a real job. 3 years ago, I landed a contract with a mid-size marketing firm that needed consistent design work. Then another. Then I hired a contractor to help. Then 2 more. By last year, I had 6 people working under me and annual revenue of $420,000. My parents still thought I was doing small freelance projects. I didn't correct them. Every time my mother made a comment about how expensive it must be to raise a child on my husband's teacher salary, I'd smile and nod. Every time my father suggested I look into administrative positions at the local college, I'd say I'd think about it. When they visited, I worked from my laptop at the kitchen table and called it checking emails. When they asked about our new car, I said we'd gotten a good financing deal. The truth was I'd paid cash. There was a specific moment, about 18 months ago, when I realized I could tell them. We were at my brother's house for Thanksgiving. My mother was talking about how worried she was about our financial future. My brother, who worked in insurance sales, was nodding sympathetically. My father was suggesting I talk to someone at his old company about entry-level positions. I had just signed a contract worth $95,000 that morning. I opened my mouth to tell them. Then my mother patted my hand and said, "It's okay to struggle, sweetheart. Not everyone is cut out for career success. You're doing the best you can." She meant it kindly. That was the worst part. She genuinely believed she was being supportive. I closed my mouth. I smiled. I said thank you. And I made a decision right then that they would find out eventually, but it would be on my terms, when I was ready, in a way that made sense. The second moment was smaller but sharper. 6 months ago, we were at my parents' house for my father's birthday. My son was playing in the backyard and knocked over one of my mother's garden sculptures. It was an accident. He apologized immediately. My mother's face went tight and she said, "This is what happens when children aren't taught to respect other people's property." I started to respond, but she held up her hand. "I know you think I'm being harsh, but someone needs to teach him accountability. You're too soft with him. It's going to hurt him in the long run." She made my son help her clean up the broken pieces and then sent him inside while the adults finished dinner on the patio. He was 7 years old. I didn't argue. I called my attorney the next morning and updated my will to ensure that if anything happened to me and my husband, my parents would have no custody rights. My sister would get guardianship. The attorney's name was Rebecca Chin, and she'd handled my business incorporation. She didn't ask questions. She just made it happen. The third moment was the one that set up Christmas. It was early December, at a family dinner at my parents' house. My mother was talking about how they were thinking of spending the holidays at their timeshare in Florida, but they'd decided to stay local in case we needed help. My father said something about how expensive Christmas must be for us, and how they remembered those lean years when my brother and I were young. My brother's wife, Melissa, made a comment about how hard it must be on a teacher's salary. I watched my son's face. He was sitting at the kids' table in the next room, but he could hear everything. He looked down at his plate. He was 8 years old, and he was learning that his family thought we were struggling, that we needed help, that there was something to pity about our lives. I didn't correct them. I had closed 3 major contracts that week totaling $230,000. Instead, I asked if they'd be willing to house sit while we visited my husband's family over Christmas. We'd never been able to go before because we couldn't afford to board our dog and hire a house sitter. This year we could afford both, but I wanted to see what my parents would do with unsupervised time in our home. My mother's face lit up. She loved our house. We'd bought it 2 years ago, and it was nicer than my brother's house, which bothered her because in her mind, I shouldn't be able to afford something like this. She'd made comments about how we must have gotten lucky with the market, or maybe my husband's parents had helped with the down payment. The truth was, I'd paid 60% down in cash, and our mortgage was lower than most people's car payments. She said of course they'd watch the house. It would give them a chance to really see how we were managing things. My father said they'd keep an eye on everything. I thanked them and felt something settle in my chest. I was giving them rope. I didn't know yet what they'd do with it. We left for Colorado on December 20th. Before we left, I set up presents under the tree. 17 presents for our son. We'd spent about $1,400 total, which was more than previous years because the business had done well, and I wanted to give him a real Christmas. The Nintendo Switch was the big one. $300. The bike was $250. The rest was books, art supplies, a telescope he'd been asking for, clothes, a new winter coat. I also left my mother a list of instructions. Where the dog food was. How to work the thermostat. The Wi-Fi password. When to water the plants. I didn't mention the security cameras because they'd been installed 2 years ago, and I'd never explicitly told my parents about them. They were small, discreet. Easy to miss if you weren't looking. The week in Colorado was good. My husband's family is loud and warm, and they treated our son like he was the most important person in the world. His cousins are close to his age, and they played for hours. My mother-in-law made cookies with him. My father-in-law taught him to play poker with chocolate chips. Nobody made comments about money or parenting or what we could or couldn't afford. On Christmas Eve, my husband's phone rang. It was my mother. She said everything was fine with the house, but she wanted to let us know that our son had been very rude to them before we left, and she felt we should know about it. My husband put her on speaker. I listened to her describe how her son had ignored her when she said hello, how he'd rolled his eyes when she reminded him to use his manners, how he'd spoken back when she corrected his posture at the dinner table. None of this had happened. We'd had a quick 15-minute overlap when my parents arrived and we were loading the car. Our son had been excited about the trip and bouncing around, but he'd been polite. He always was with them, almost to the point of being stiff, because he'd learned early that my mother noticed everything. My husband told her we'd talk to him about it. She said she hoped we would because this kind of behavior needed to be addressed early. She said she'd hate to see him grow up without proper respect for authority. Then she said she had to go because they were about to watch a movie, and she hung up. I looked at my husband. He looked at me. We didn't say anything. We went back to the family room where everyone was playing Monopoly, and I smiled and laughed and played the game. But I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera app. I scrolled back to December 20th, to the hour before we left. I watched my parents arrive. I watched my son wave at them from the porch. I watched my mother lean down and say something to him. I turned the volume up. "Hello, sweetheart. My goodness, you're getting so tall. Give Grandma a hug." I watched my son hug her. I watched my father pat his shoulder. I watched my son help carry their overnight bag inside while we finished loading the car. There was no eye-rolling, no rudeness, no backtalk. He was a polite, slightly reserved 8-year-old who was excited about a trip and trying to remember his manners around grandparents who made him nervous. I closed the app. I had 6 more days of footage to watch. But not yet. Not while we were with family, not while our son was having a good Christmas. I'd wait until we got home. We drove back on December 27th. 6-hour drive. Our son talked about everything he wanted to do with his presents. He'd been so patient about waiting to open them. He'd understood that Christmas with Dad's family meant no presents under their tree, but his own presents would be waiting at home. He talked about the Switch, about which games he wanted to get, about how he was going to set up his bike jumps in the driveway like his cousin had shown him. We pulled into the driveway at 4 in the afternoon. The house looked perfect. The walkway was shoveled. The lights were on. My parents' car was gone. They'd texted that morning saying they'd left early to avoid traffic and that everything was all set. My son ran inside ahead of us. I heard him stop. I heard the silence. I walked in and saw him standing in front of the tree, holding the note. After I got him settled in his room with a movie and a promise that we'd figure this out, after my husband made phone calls to my brother that went to voicemail, after I'd pulled up the security footage on my laptop, I started watching. December 20th, 7 p.m. My parents settled in. My mother walked through the house, opening drawers in the kitchen, checking the mail organizer, running her finger along the windowsills like she was checking for dust. She picked up our mortgage statement from the counter where I'd left it in the mail pile. I watched her face change as she read it. I watched her call my father over. I watched them read it together. December 21st, 10 a.m. My mother was on the phone. I turned the volume up. "I'm telling you, Lisa, something isn't right. Their mortgage payment is less than half what ours was when we bought our first house. Either someone helped them or they're lying about something." Pause. "No, I checked. The house is in both their names. No cosigners." Pause. "I know. It doesn't make sense." December 21st, 2 p.m. My father was in my home office. I watched him sit at my desk. I watched him try to open my laptop. It was password protected. He tried a few obvious combinations. Then he started opening desk drawers. He found my business tax returns from last year. I watched him read them. I watched his expression shift from curiosity to confusion to something that looked like anger. December 22nd, 9 a.m. My parents were in the kitchen. My mother was making coffee. For $120,000, Robert. That's what her business brought in last year. Her business. Not household income. Just her. My father's voice was tight. "She's been lying to us. My mother, she's been making fools of us. Every time we offered help, every time we gave advice about money, she was sitting on this." December 23rd, 3 p.m. My mother was looking at the presents under the tree. She picked up the Nintendo Switch box, read the price tag I'd forgotten to remove. $300. She picked up another present. Then another. She called my father in. "Do you know how much she spent on these? For one child? For Christmas. My father, too much. My mother, this is what happens when people who didn't grow up with money suddenly get some. They don't know how to handle it. They don't teach their children the value of things. December 24th, 11 a.m. My mother was on the phone with someone. I think we should return them. All of them. She's spoiling that boy, and it's our job as grandparents to step in when parents won't do what's right. Pause. I don't care if she gets upset. She should have been honest with us. She made us look foolish. Pause. We'll leave a note. She'll understand once she calms down. This is for the child's own good. December 24th, 2 p.m. I watched my parents load every present into their car. Every single one. My mother was careful about it, making sure nothing got damaged. They drove away. December 24th, 6 p.m. They came back. My mother was carrying shopping bags. I watched them bring them inside. I watched my father count out cash. $1,462. Receipt by receipt, he verified everything had been returned. My mother put the cash in her purse. December 25th, 9 a.m. Christmas morning. My parents were drinking coffee in our living room. My mother, we should have done this years ago. She needs to learn that lying to family has consequences. My father, the boy needs to learn that respect matters more than toys. My mother wrote the note. I watched her write it, revise it, rewrite it on fresh stationery. I watched her fold it and place it under the tree where 17 presents had been. December 26th, 10 a.m. They packed up and left. My mother stopped in front of the tree, looked at the note, and nodded once. Then they were gone. I watched all of it. Every minute. I made notes. Timestamps. Direct quotes. Then I saved everything to 3 different cloud drives and my attorney's secure server. Then I called Rebecca Chin. I need you to draft a cease and desist letter, I said. And I need to talk about grandparent rights in our state. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. What happened? I told her. All of it. The returned presents. The kept money. The security footage. The years of condescension and dismissal. The fact that they'd gone through my private papers and then decided to punish my child for my perceived dishonesty. Send me the footage, she said. All of it. And give me until tomorrow morning. I spent the rest of that evening with my son. We ordered pizza. We watched movies. My husband went to Target and bought replacement presents. Not the same ones, those would take time to reorder, but enough that our son would have something to unwrap. A different gaming system. A scooter instead of a bike. Books and art supplies and clothes. We spent about $800 and I didn't care. I wanted my son to have Christmas. But the whole time, I was thinking about the footage. About my mother's face when she read my mortgage statement. About my father's voice saying I'd been lying to them. About their absolute certainty that they had the right to return my son's presents because I hadn't been honest about my income. The next morning, December 28th, Rebecca emailed me a draft of the letter. It was perfect. It outlined the theft, because that's what it was, theft, and demanded return of the $1,462 within 7 days. It included selected quotes from the security footage. It notified them that they were no longer welcome in our home and that any attempt to contact our son without our explicit written permission would result in legal action. It referenced the grandparent rights laws in our state and made it clear that they had no legal standing to demand access. Do you want to send it? Rebecca asked when I called her. Not yet, I said. I want to do this in person. My parents were hosting New Year's Eve dinner. They did it every year. My brother and his wife. My aunt and uncle. A few family friends. Formal, but not black tie. My mother liked to show off her house and her cooking and her ability to host a perfect party. I hadn't RSVP'd yet. The invitation had come in mid-December, before Christmas, before everything. My mother had texted me on December 27th asking if we were coming. I hadn't responded. On December 30th, I texted her back. We'll be there. She responded immediately. Wonderful. I'm so glad you're not letting a little misunderstanding ruin the holidays. A little misunderstanding. I read that text 3 times. Then I confirmed with Rebecca that she'd have the documentation ready. Then I called my brother. Did Mom and Dad talk to you about Christmas? I asked. They mentioned you might be upset about something, he said. Mom said it was a parenting disagreement. Did they tell you they returned all of Owen's Christmas presents and kept the money? Silence. Then, what? I told him everything. The note. The footage. The cash they'd pocketed. By the time I finished, he was quiet. That's not a parenting disagreement, he finally said. No, I agreed. It's not. Are you going to the New Year's thing? Yes. Do you want backup? I loved my brother in that moment more than I had in years. I'll be okay. But thank you. New Year's Eve arrived. I dressed carefully. Not too formal, not too casual. I wanted to look put together, but not like I was trying to make a statement. My husband wore a button-down and khakis. Owen wore his new sweater from Target Christmas and looked excited about staying up late. We arrived at my parents' house at 6 p.m. There were already cars in the driveway. My aunt's sedan. My uncle's truck. A few others I didn't recognize. We walked in without knocking. We never knocked at my parents' house, and the warmth and noise of the party hit us immediately. My mother saw us first. Her face lit up in that practiced way she had, the hostess smile that meant everything was under control. You came. I'm so glad. Come in, come in. Owen, sweetheart, the kids are downstairs. She leaned down to hug him. He let her, but his body was stiff. My father appeared from the kitchen, drink in hand. There's the family. Good to see you. Traffic okay? We made small talk. We moved into the living room where everyone was gathered. My aunt hugged me. My uncle asked about Colorado. My brother caught my eye from across the room and raised his eyebrows in question. I shook my head slightly. Not yet. Dinner was at 7. My mother had outdone herself. Prime rib. Roasted vegetables. Homemade rolls. 3 different wines. Everything was perfect and beautiful and exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd been hosting these dinners for 30 years. We sat down. 20 people around my parents' extended dining table. Owen was at the kids' table in the next room with my brother's kids and a few children of family friends. I could see him from where I sat. My mother raised her glass. To family, she said. To another year together. To health and happiness and love. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine. I took a sip. Then I set it down and said, actually, before we eat, I have something I need to address. The table went quiet. My mother's smile froze. My father's hand stopped halfway to his wine glass. I want to talk about Christmas, I said. My voice was calm. I'd practiced this. Specifically, about the $1,462 worth of presents you returned without permission and then kept the money from. My mother's face went very still. I don't think this is the time. It's exactly the time, I said. You did this because you found my business tax returns and felt betrayed that I hadn't told you about my income. You decided to punish my 8-year-old son by taking away his Christmas because you felt I'd made a fool of you. My aunt set down her fork. My uncle was staring. My brother's wife had her hand over her mouth. My father cleared his throat. Now, let's not. I have footage, I said. I pulled out my phone. Security cameras. Audio and video. Would you like me to play the part where you call me a liar? Or the part where you count the cash you got from returning my son's presents? Or maybe the part where you talk about teaching him a lesson about respect? My mother's face had gone from still to pale. You've been recording us? I've been recording my home, I said. You were in my home. Going through my private papers. Reading my financial documents. Making decisions about my child's Christmas based on your hurt feelings about my income. We were trying to help, my mother started. By stealing from my son? By taking away his Christmas? By pocketing $1,400 that wasn't yours. I leaned forward. Let me tell you what you don't know. My business brought in $420,000 last year. This year we're on track for $600,000. I have 6 employees. I own this business outright. I've been building it for 5 years while you've been patting my hand and telling me it's okay that I'm not cut out for career success. The room was completely silent. Someone's wine glass was trembling in their hand. I couldn't tell whose. Every time you offered financial advice, I had more money in my business account than you have in your retirement fund. Every time you worried about our future, I was signing contracts worth more than Dad made in a year before he retired. And I didn't tell you because I knew exactly what you'd do. You'd find a way to make it about yourselves. About how I should have told you. About how I was lying to you by not sharing every detail of my financial life. My mother's hands were shaking. She put them in her lap. We had a right to know. You had no right to my private financial information, I said. And you certainly had no right to punish my child because you felt excluded from it. My father's voice was harder now. That boy was rude to us. We left you a note explaining. I have footage of that too, I said. Every interaction you had with Owen before we left. Every word. He was polite to the point of being uncomfortable. He always is around you because he's learned that you're watching for any excuse to criticize. I pulled out my phone and started playing the footage. The timestamp read December 20th, 3:47 p.m. My son's voice, small and clear, "Hi, Grandma." "Hi, Grandpa." My mother's voice, "Hello, sweetheart." "My goodness, you're getting so tall. Give Grandma a hug." The hug. My father patting his shoulder. Owen carrying their bag inside. I let it play for 30 seconds. Then I stopped it. That's your rude, disrespectful grandson. An 8-year-old boy who was excited about a trip and trying his best to be polite. My mother stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. In my own home. Sit down, Mom, my brother said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken. Everyone looked at him. Sit down and let her finish. My mother sat. Her face was blotchy now. Red patches on her cheeks. I pulled out a folder from my bag. Rebecca had prepared it yesterday. I slid it across the table to my father. That's a cease and desist letter from my attorney. You're no longer welcome in my home. You're not to contact my son without my explicit written permission. You have 7 days to return the $1,462 you stole, or we'll file charges for theft. My father opened the folder. He read the first page. His face went gray. That's not this was about parenting, not he couldn't finish the sentence. It was about control, I said. It's always been about control. About keeping me small enough that you could manage me. About making sure I needed you so you'd always have a place in my life where you could offer advice and wisdom and feel important. My mother's voice was barely above a whisper. That's not true. We love you. We were trying to help. You went through my desk, I said. You read my private tax documents. You made a decision to punish my child based on your feelings about my financial privacy. That's not love. That's not help. That's vindictive and cruel, and I won't expose my son to it anymore. My aunt was crying. I hadn't noticed until now. My uncle had his arm around her. My brother was staring at our parents like he'd never seen them before. The footage is backed up in 3 locations, I said, including with my attorney. If you want to contest this, if you want to claim that you had a right to do what you did, we can let a judge watch your greatest hits. You counting the cash. You laughing about teaching my son a lesson. You talking about how I don't know the value of things because I didn't grow up with money like you did. My father set down the letter. His hands were shaking too now. We raised you, he said. His voice was rough. We gave you everything. This is how you repay us. You raised me to be small, I said. To doubt myself. To always need your approval and guidance. But I'm not small anymore. And I don't need your approval. I need you to return the money you stole from my son and stay away from my family. My mother made a sound. It was something between a gasp and a sob. You can't, we're your parents. We have rights. Actually, you don't, I said. I pulled out another page from the folder. Grandparent rights in our state require proof of an existing relationship that's beneficial to the child. Your relationship with Owen consists of criticism, surveillance, and now theft. No judge will grant you access. My attorney has assured me of this. I stood up. My husband stood with me. We're leaving now, I said. I'll expect the money within 7 days. Wire transfer is fine. The account information is in the letter. I walked into the next room where Owen was sitting with the other kids. They were playing a board game and laughing. I touched his shoulder. Time to go, buddy. He looked up at me. Already? We just got here. I know. But we need to head out. He didn't argue. He said goodbye to his cousins and followed us to the door. We could hear the absolute silence from the dining room. 20 people who'd just witnessed something they'd probably talk about for years. We walked to our car. My husband started the engine. Owen buckled his seatbelt and asked if we could stop for ice cream on the way home. I said yes. We drove away from my parents' house, and I didn't look back. My phone started ringing before we made it to the ice cream shop. My mother. I declined the call. Then my father. Declined. Then my mother again. I turned off my phone. We got ice cream. Owen got a sundae with extra gummy bears. My husband got coffee ice cream. I got nothing because I didn't think I could eat. We sat in the bright fluorescent shop and Owen talked about the game he'd been playing with his cousins and how he'd almost won. He was happy. He had no idea what had just happened. On the drive home, my husband reached over and squeezed my hand. "You did good," he said. I wasn't sure yet if that was true, but I knew I'd done what needed to be done. The next morning, January 1st, my phone had 47 missed calls. My mother, my father, my aunt, my brother. 3 voicemails. I listened to the one from my brother first. "Call me when you can," he said. "Everyone left about 10 minutes after you did. Mom locked herself in the bedroom. Dad's just sitting in his chair. I think I never really saw them clearly before. Call me." I didn't listen to the voicemails from my parents. I forwarded them to Rebecca instead, in case we needed documentation. On January 3rd, my business account received a wire transfer for $1,462. No note, no message, just the money. On January 5th, I received a letter in the mail. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a single page. "You're right. About all of it. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can. But you're right." I didn't respond. I put the letter in a folder with all the other documentation and filed it away. My brother called me that week. "Dad wants to know if there's a way to make this right," he said. "I don't know," I told him honestly. "Right now, I just need space." "That's fair," he said. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I should have seen this years ago. The way they talk to you. About you. It was easier not to notice." "I know," I said. Because I did. It's always easier not to notice. 3 months have passed now. My parents haven't contacted me directly. They sent Owen a birthday card in February with a check for $50 inside. I deposited the check and didn't respond. They didn't send a note with it. Just the card with "Love, Grandma and Grandpa" printed inside in my mother's careful handwriting. My business hit $700,000 in revenue this quarter. I hired 2 more contractors and moved into a real office space instead of working from home. Owen's room is full of the presents we bought to replace the ones my parents returned, plus new ones from his birthday. He's happy. He doesn't ask about his grandparents anymore. My brother comes over for dinner sometimes. He brings his kids and they play with Owen and we order pizza and watch movies. He told me that my parents have started seeing a therapist, that they're trying to understand why they did what they did. I told him that was good, but it didn't change anything for me right now. I don't hate my parents. I think about them sometimes and feel sad about what could have been. But I don't need them anymore. I don't need their approval or their advice or their version of love that came with so many conditions. My son is thriving. He got an A on his last report card. He's learning to ride his new bike without training wheels. He told me last week that he wants to start his own business someday like Mommy does. He doesn't remember the Christmas his presents were taken away. Or if he does, he doesn't talk about it. He just remembers that we fixed it, that he got Christmas anyway, that we kept our promise to him. That's enough for me. So, did I go too far? Or not far enough? Tell me in the comments.